This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Good morning, Ira. It always helps to have like a coaching staff that's been here forever. I can always use them as points of reference for all kinds of different things.
Yeah, and I heard you on the crosstalk talking about how the Heat have changed and shaken things up. Look, to a degree, it's because they've developed their coaches. So David Fizdale gets the job in Memphis and then New York. So Juwan Howard gets the job in Michigan. They've advanced their people also. But you're right. They've moved aside some older coaches, Ron Rothstein, Bob McAdoo, Keith Askins. They have role talent, even with Dan Craig. Left one assistant job here to the Clippers, a lateral move, because in their view, Chris Quinn was the next wave of lead assistants. So we have seen that. Two things you want to do. Mike McDaniel hasn't had a time yet to start a coaching tree, but you want to develop your guys. You want to have a quarterbacks coach or a tight ends coach who's good enough to be an offensive coordinator somewhere. Eric Spoelstra always says the same thing. He hates to lose good friends, but he loves to see when his guys advance. But he's also been smart enough to bring in veteran guys. For example, Malik Allen was a big man coach under Stan Van Gundy in Detroit. Then he went to Minnesota, and he said, you know what? When I lost Juwan, I need a veteran big man coach because I've got this prodigy in Bam Adebayo to develop. And let's face it, no player in the Miami Heat has made the strides that Bam Adebayo has over the last 2 or 3 years. And I think you've really got to credit Malik Allen for working with the kid, helping him develop and find his own voice. So I don't know if Vic Fangio is someone like that, but there is something to be said for bringing in a guy who's had success elsewhere and saying, okay, mold our young lumps of clay. And I think that's what you're seeing with the Dolphins now.
Yep, no doubt. And plus you have Bradley Chubb here, which is somebody he already coached in Denver and knows how to coach him. So, and had some pretty good years under Fangio. So I think that really helps out too with the trade that you made. All right, last night, painful, dude, watching the Hornets beat the Heat, watching the Heat get beat up on the boards, not being able to shoot threes. And the weird part was they actually took care of the basketball. They only had 10 turnovers. So it wasn't like they were giving the ball away, but the defense wasn't there. Rozier's lighting them up. PJ Brenner with 27 points. Haywood with 20. All those things. I mean, just absolute. And by the way, for those of you, his name is not PJ Washington. It's PJ Brenner because, Brittany Renner, that is, I'm sorry, Renner, PJ Renner. Remember, he had a kid with the Instagram model, so that's why we call him PJ Renner there. But the boys just, God, that was ugly yesterday, Ira. That was just,
and I hate the excuse of it's an afternoon game because some of your biggest playoff games might be afternoon games. So I don't want to hear that. This is a Heat team. We always hear the expression, "Don't let go of the rope." They let go of the rope. They were up 13. They rode the wave like you just showed with your hand signals there for those just listening on the podcast. And that's what happens. And just when you think you're in a good position and you're out of, that malaise you have, you get smacked in the face. And it doesn't get easier. You have the Cavaliers tomorrow, and you have their loaded roster and their loaded backcourt with Garland and Donovan Mitchell. The Knicks, say what you want. They're right there, a game behind the Heat for that coveted number 6 playoff seed. I wrote about that in the Sun Sentinel today. Then you're off to Milwaukee on Saturday. You can't blow the opportunities. If the Heat would have come back from this trip 2-2 and gotten the wins in New York and Charlotte, I would have said, okay, Big O, they left 6 games over. They come back home in a good spot. Now you have to find that extra victory to not have a losing road trip. It's not going to be, not going to be easy. Even if you get it in New York, you have to find a way either here in Cleveland or in Milwaukee. The Heat keep setting themselves up for disappointment. And that's been a really frustrating part of this season.
Well, one of the things that I'm pretty sure you mentioned in one of your notes it's that article where you put all the notes while the game is going on, and one of the things that you talked about that it's a 3-point league, and they're a terrible 3-point shooting team, and I don't know how that gets better. I was thinking about this on Saturday. I'm going, okay, so are we fooled all year long? Is this Heat team just going to flounder all year, and then all of a sudden in the playoffs they're going to start playing better, and it's something that we didn't expect? Or is this really what we're going to see from here on out? And because this is kind of what I'm expecting. It just doesn't look like it's a good team right now. But I start to look at the pieces and I say, man, if they could actually play, but it is a 3-point league.
It is.
Where do you turn the corner on this?
I don't know if you do. Kyle Lowry was really good. I got him alone when he stopped watching his Eagles for a couple of minutes in the locker room. And he offered a really interesting point. He said, look at our two leading scorers. Jimmy Butler's a guy who plays inside the arc. We know that, we accept that, and he is great at it.
And
Bam Adebayo is a player who plays inside the paint, and he is great at it. But it might be stylistically, it's just not going to be good enough. And I'll give you the comparison. The Dolphins had 2, maybe 3 fantastic receivers this season. They went to the passing game constantly. And then we kept asking ourselves, what's happening to the running game? And then when they needed the running game, it wasn't there because that's not who they are. Sometimes your roster composition leaves you in a difficult place overall. This might sound weird. Jimmy Butler's your best player. Bam Adebayo, if Jimmy's not, is your best player. But you might need a little bit less of those two because you have to feed the 3-point game, just like the Dolphins should have fed the running game a little bit more. It's so simple. It's simple enough math that even someone like me who got a C- in finite math in college at SUNY Binghamton knows this. 3s are worth more than 2. The Heat have been very good on their 2s, and other teams have been very better on their 3s. And I think they have to rectify that. And if it requires a stylistic change, then so be it. I love what Bam has done. I love what Jimmy can do, but it has to be more than that also.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. You say, which is all true, what Lowry says, that you got 2 inside players in Butler and in Bam, and you also have 2 excellent passers while they're also penetrators. Okay, so then that means they can be creators. And if I look around the team, then I start looking at Caleb Martin. I start looking especially at Tyler Hero and Gabe Vincent and Victor Oladipo and Max. I don't know what the hell is going on with Strus right now from 3-point range, and even Duncan Robinson. So you do have 3-point shooters. Why aren't you trying to work that kind of an offense where the impactful players who attract a lot of attention can also be impactful creators and hopefully get those shooters on track? Because the formula to win will be that one. The formula that you're using now is not going to win you games. And I know they would say, well, it slows down a little bit in the playoffs. Yes and no. It does slow down, but this is not the 90s anymore. It doesn't slow enough down to a crawl where you're going to win with the inside game. You're still going to need to run. You're still going to need to stretch that defense. You're still going to need to hit 3-point shots. So why not try to work it the other way and use those big studs to also create some stuff for the guys in the perimeter?
And I think it is fundamentally rooted in the rotation. Until this year, you always had, quote unquote, a 3-point specialist in your starting lineup, either Duncan Robinson or Max Strus. But you had to placate, you thought, Tyler Hero, you brought him in there. So there's not the mindset of, we have this 3 guy, we've got to feed him. If you recall previous Heat seasons when Duncan Robinson was starting, or even Max, they would almost always start the game trying to get one of those 2 off early with a 3-point attempt. I can't tell you how many Heat games used to begin with Duncan Robinson opening the scoring with a 3. You don't do that. Now let's look at the second unit. Even though Max Strus is still there, Duncan Robinson has been phased out. The primary scorer on the second unit is Victor Oladipo, who has never been a great 3-point shooter. So in your second unit, you're playing to a guy who's a slasher, mid-range pull-up, not that style of game. Your fundamental rotation and your lineup right now does not play to that, and that's hurting them. So what Eric Spoelstra tried to do is he's trying to play to the strengths of his best players. You know what? Duncan Robinson, no offense, Duncan Robinson was never one of the Heat's best players. He just wasn't. He was functional. Max Strus was never one of the Heat's best players when he was starting in the playoffs, but it was functional. I think the Heat right now have a dysfunctional lineup and a dysfunctional rotation because you've got to play for your 3-point players, just like the Dolphins got so far away from the running game that when they called on Mostert or someone, It wasn't there because they haven't used the damn guy. You got to get warmed up early. So when you're trying to run clock late, you have someone who's warmed up and juiced and ready to go. Look, if the Heat are learning this now, there's still 31 games left. You can address it. But if you keep banging your damn head against the wall over and over with this rotation and this lineup, you're probably going to get the same results.
What is your definition of this team? What do they look like to you right now?
My definition of this team is not good enough for where they want to be. And this is the story I just posted the Sun Sentinel. Big O, the Miami Heat are number 6 in the East. If they had won yesterday, they could have gone into the game in Cleveland, possibly with a chance to move into number 5 or been on the cusp, depending on last night's game that Cleveland did win. Instead, they're only 1 game up on the Knicks, and the play-in is a very dangerous place for anyone to be. Because honestly, I could see the Heat in a 1-game showdown in Miami against the Knicks with all the New York fans. The Heat lose that, and then it's all or nothing for the number 8 seed and playing a top seed. They're stuck in the middle right now. They need a kick in the ass and a jolt by next Thursday's NBA trade deadline. But I'm not sure they have the pieces to make it. But they need something. They've always done something. It was big a couple of years back when it was for Jay Crowder and it was Andre Iguodala. It was smaller the year after when it was for Trevor Ariza, and that didn't get as much done. Last year was a cap move just to get Caleb Martin on a standard deal and dealing KZ Okpala. They need a jolt of energy. They need you and I next Thursday, a week from Thursday, to talk about, hey, this could be a difference. This guy could be a difference maker. I'm not so sure Jay Crowder is that kind of player, but I think they've just got to find something. I mentioned Terrence Ross in Ask Ira the other day. The Heat have always added guys who have killed them. Sort of like, if they're going to beat you, you let them join you. I think a guy, an instant offense guy like that, like a Terrence Ross, who could come in maybe twice a month and all of a sudden go off at 12 straight points, that's exactly what this team could use right now. That jolt of something a little bit different. It is getting, you know what? I use the word as Big O. It's getting a little bit stale.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And if they get a power forward, it's got to be somebody that can also stretch it, right?
You need another 3-point shooter. And again, you know what? I call a lot of these deals 2-for-1 deals for this reason. Not only would you be getting a starting power forward, but you'd be re-injecting Caleb Martin's energy into the second unit. So I think you would be upgrading your starting unit and you'd be energizing your second unit. It would be a 2-for-1 deal. The Heat have made those kind of deals before where they just add someone, move someone over, and you get a double boost out of it. I also think they need a backup center, whether it's Omar Yurtseven coming back and being healthy for the playoffs.
When's that happen?
Orlando Robinson is not good enough right now to be your playoff backup center. God bless him. But he's young, he's raw, and honestly, he's just a guy.
Okay, so when's the big yurt coming back?
Well, you know what? He was out shooting during practice last week, but he was also wearing a splint on his ankle. That doesn't bode very well. Look, the All-Star break is the 19th, the All-Star game, so I would say early March. And that can work for you because think about this, Big O. That's the same timetable as Victor Oladipo last season. And Victor Oladipo was a genuine playoff contributor, correct? He made some really good moves and games in the playoffs. I think if they know that Omer can come back by March, I think they're okay then. If they don't, and again, you're going to give me all kinds of Kardashian jokes here, whatever, but even if Tristan Thompson or someone like that, just to give you a bona fide, real NBA playoff experience center for the playoffs, I think you'd have to look outside for someone like that. So I think the medicals on Omer are important. Dwayne Dedman is literally dead man walking. I do not expect him to be here after the February 9th trading deadline. Orlando Robinson, hey kid, you got like 13 more games on your NBA contract. Come back and see us next season. Maybe you're the future. Maybe Omar Yurtseven leaves in free agency. But right now, this Heat team needs to get better, and they have the avenues to do that.
Oh my God, Kardashians will be in the arena. Oh,
hey, we already had Lamar Odom, so we've lived the entire experience.
Jesus. All right, follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat. What do you got going on in the Sun Sentinel, my friend?
I posted that story about where they are in the standings. It is so tenuous, and man, I could just imagine the pressure and the tight, whatever you want to call them, if this team has to go to the play-in. They've had their chances to move up, and they have blown them. So now it's a matter of where it stands. I wrote an Ask Ira today also. I also posted that about whether the Heat, a deal will make a difference for them or not. And I got practice at 12:45, so I'll have other juicy tidbits for you later in the afternoon, folks. Tomorrow, I'll discuss all of that with Kurt Heelan, moving it up a day on our RedRecover.com Inside the Paint show at 9 a.m. So we'll sort of assess the Heat going into the big Cleveland game also.
51 games already into the season. All right, here we go. Follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat. Ira, as always, thank you, my friend. We'll catch up on Friday.
Off to the snow. Be thankful, South Florida people. Be very thankful. Thanks, Big O.
You got it. Hang in there, my brother. Be safe. There you go. That is your Acura of Pembroke Pines Miami Heat and NBA report. They got a great selection. We're at the end of the month. All right. So we got 2 more days here, today and tomorrow. They are going to make you some great deals right now. The 2023 Acura Integra, the what's it called? The sports car of the year in North America, man. That is a pretty damn good title. What is it? Let me make sure I get it right here. Let me get it right. Let me make sure. It is the North American Car of the Year, not sports car. North American Car of the Year, which is even bigger than anything else. The Acura Integra. It is also sharp, by the way. My wife loves the Integra, but I told her, nope, you're gonna get yourself an electric car. That's what we're gonna get. So we're waiting for it. Hopefully by the end of this year, I think. I know we just started the year, but hopefully that new Acura is gonna come out. That commercial has got me jacked for that car. There you go. That's your Acura Pembroke Pines Miami Heat and NBA reports.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.